Hey, welcome to My Green Pets. I'm William Green. It is September 18th, and we are at the end of the growing season, the beginning of the end, I suppose we could say. The majority of the Cattleyas that I have are Cattleya rex, and they go through a 4-month dry period every year in their natural habitat where they get half or less rain than they get the rest of the year. So I'm going to be approximating that in my grow tent for them. And many of the other plants also require quite a bit less water in the winter, the exception being some of the Bulbophyllums and maybe the Dendrochilum as well. But for the most part, everything will get less water in the winter. Temperatures will stay mostly the same. The highs will be a little bit lower. The lows will be a little bit lower, but overall, just a couple degrees. Everything, they'll still have a nice warm day in the tent, and they'll still have cooler nights. So we're going to try to keep those temperatures consistent, decrease the amount of water, and have ourselves a good dry season when it happens. Now that's going to be November for me, so I've still got about a month and a half to give these guys regular amount of water, fertilizer, and get them all plumped up and hopefully prepared for dry season. All right, let's have a look at a couple plants that I've got my eye on this week. Bulbophyllum echinolabium, also known as HAL. It's got 2 spikes with flower buds coming out, and these look like they might actually bloom maybe close to the same day. That'll be cool. I am waiting for Hal to produce some kind of new growth. He's been blooming non-stop for a couple years, but no new growth. You can see that the current bulbs have a little bit of crispiness at the top there, and I would really like to see some new growth on Hal. The Catasetum types, I have 4. Got Cygnocchys cooperi. You can see its bulb is swollen, and the top 2 leaves are visible there, and will not be growing much taller, fattening up. Don't expect to see any blooms on this little guy, still a seedling, but hopefully next year. Behind it we have Cloecia Rebecca Northern, and you can see its bulb has also swollen up quite a bit. Up here you can see that these 2 leaves are done, and you can actually see a little bit of yellowing going on there too. So these little guys should be dropping leaves in the next couple months, I would imagine. Then behind it we've got a big hybrid. This is Mormodia Jumbo World. This is about as good as it's ever looked. It looks great. It looks great this year. And this year's bulb is also huge compared to previous bulbs. The most flowers on a spike this plant has ever had has been about 24, maybe more. But with a huge bulb like this, I would really like to get 2 spikes with at least 24 flowers each. We will see if that happens. I'm still watering and fertilizing normally. It lost a leaf last week. This one down here it lost. And this one usually turns yellow in October. So I would say about a month or so, we'll start to see some real leaf drop happening. Look at the roots down here, crawling out of the pot and growing everywhere. Very happy plant. It is in just regular sphagnum, kept moist, and let it dry out. I let it dry until the top is just a little bit dry feeling, and then I soak it again. I'll be cutting back on that as the leaves start falling off. Cattleyas José Martí is a classic Trianae, Gaskeliana, and mossiae hybrid from the 1950s. One of its parents is the classic Bowbells, and I believe I saw a really interesting thread on Slipper Talk, and I believe actually no, I think it was Orchid Board, and they were saying that Shogun orchids in Hawaii is doing a lot of breeding with these classic hybrids, and I think when I looked at the tag, um, it says HSH, so I'm wondering if that's Shogun. I emailed them, but I didn't get an answer. But it would be interesting to know who did this cross. So if this plant is 53% mossiae, and this sheath has just come out of the new growth, and then there's a sheath on this older growth as well. This one I'm not sure if it'll do anything, but I'd really love to see something come out of this one. Now, if this is a mossiae, and it's going to act like a mossiae, since it does have a lot of that in its heritage, what I would expect is that this sheath, this growth will complete, the leaf will spread out, and the sheath will just kind of sit there until early spring, so March, April, maybe even late as May. I wouldn't expect anything to push out of that sheath. So now it's kind of interesting because the Cattleyas that I'm used to growing, the Rexes, they bloom almost immediately after the new growth is pushed out. In fact, it's almost sometimes they're blooming as the new growth is still pushing out. But this is a different type of Cattleya that rests before it blooms. So we'll be sitting and watching this empty sheath for a few months. But hopefully in the spring we'll have some really spectacular white flowers on this classic old plant. I'm trying not to focus too much on this Cattleya walkeriana, but I really would like it to bloom. The older bulbs are pretty shriveled. I don't know if that's going to be a problem. The new bulbs are nice and plump. So hopefully, with some correct watering, I can get those old bulbs plumped up again. But I'm really looking down here to hopefully see something pushing out this winter. Would love to have this plant bloom. Very fragrant and something I've never done before, so it'd be really cool. This Bulbophyllum lepidum looks pretty fat and happy. The new leaves especially, new plump bulbs down there as well. It did have a spike that had pushed out, but unfortunately that has blasted. Not quite sure why. Maybe it's too wet down there in that pot, or maybe it just wasn't ready to do it after all. I'm not sure. A little disappointed about that, but can't complain too much about the way the plant looks. The plant still looks pretty happy. Cattleya maxima is another one of those Cattleyas that puts sheaths up, and then the sheaths just don't do anything for months, and then it finally blooms. This plant kind of growing and blooming out of season, but it's got new growths coming out down here. It just completed a couple more larger ones up here. And what happened last year was that these growths came out with these sheaths, and the sheaths were on them for something like 8 months before they bloomed. I think these growths were complete in November, and then they just kind of sat around until August when they finally bloomed. So I'm expecting this plant, now it almost seems like it's kind of in full growth mode right now. Expect it to put out several new growths, again with nice sheaths on them that will just kind of sit there and wait for us until it's ready to bloom at the end of next summer. Bulbophyllum medusae is one of my coolest orchids, I think, in terms of the way the flowers look. It got really heavily divided earlier this year, actually back in January, and I left myself a 4 or 5 bulb division. They put out 3 new growths this year, which is great. They are quite a bit smaller, but you can see they are nice and plump. Even the older bulbs seem to be plumping up, and we've got good root growth happening back here, and I'm not sure if we're going to get any blooms on it this year, but that's okay. I do detect a little bit of a bump at the base of that bulb there. I'm not quite sure what that is. If it's going to bloom, it'll probably be out of that bulb. But it seems to be growing okay, and I'm happy with it. The various seedlings that I have seem to be doing pretty well. Lots of root growth. Some of them are even, their roots are climbing out of their little pots there. Great to see. These are the tiniest ones here. These came from Peru back in May. But even some of them are starting to get some size. Looking pretty good. A lot of the Cattleya rexes are rooting right now. This plant was kind of overrun with snails, and I submerged it a few weeks ago to try to drive some of them out. Got a lot of them. Sure I didn't get them all though, but you can see the plant's trying to recover and pick up where it left off before its root tips started getting eaten off. Lots of new roots coming out on that one. The plant right next to it, knock on wood, hasn't had much of a snail problem. You can see how many roots it's putting out now from multiple growths. All those roots are definitely something that's great to see, especially on a mounted plant like that. Even my potted rexes are putting out lots of new roots as well. You can see little green tips there. Always a good thing to see. All right. If there's any questions or anything you want to see, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time right here on My Green Pets. Have a good week. Bye.